Karen, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to have you.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Michelle. We could have already started recording because we pretty much already did a podcast just talking
Look, I know
with
it's so
so many
funny.
interesting topics.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I wanted to start today with a little bit about you and what led you to becoming such a passionate voice for women's hormone health.
So I kind of have two stories, but I'll condense it into a very short one because I'm sure everybody doesn't need to hear, an hour-long story of Karen's life. But mine started actually when I had my first baby at around 33, which I think typically things start to go wrong for many women at this time when we have our first children. And afterwards, about a year afterwards, I started to very rapidly gain weight and without changing my diet. And so I started to exercise more and follow the newest trends in diets and was like super regiment and was doing all the things that I was being told to do. Then I started getting insomnia. Then I started getting rashes. Then I started having digestive problems and, go to the doctor. The doctor puts me on an antidepressant. She puts me on medication for sleep. She just was, typical doctor treatment. I went away, nothing changed. And I was finally like, I think this is hormonal. I think something's happening with my hormones. Being 33, 34 at the time, nobody was going to say that to me. No doctor was going to say, oh, I think it's your hormones.
Right.
And so I went and got my hormones checked with a naturopath. And lo and behold, yep, I was, low cortisol, low DHEA, really high estrogen, no progesterone. And so I went down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out, okay, there's something obviously really wrong with my hormones here. I was doing everything wrong. I was doing boot camp, 6 days a week, starving myself, calorie counting, which now that I know what the hormone profile I had, that was all the wrong things to be doing.
Absolutely.
And so I had to completely shift gears. I started doing yoga, started, meditate, doing all the things to help with my nervous system and getting better sleep. And it was a long journey, but eventually the weight started to come off. I discovered a paleo-based diet, discovered I had a thyroid problem. So I got everything addressed and I'm like, okay, smooth sailing. From here on in. And I thought to myself, there's got to be more women like me who were doing everything right and what they were being told. I didn't have an eating issue. I wasn't eating McDonald's every day. I was, like I said, I was exercising. I was eating super, super clean and probably just not eating enough, but doing everything right. Didn't drink, didn't smoke. And I'm like, there's got to be more women out there like me that have weight loss resistance because of their hormones. And so I started when I was around 37, I decided, you know what, I'm going to become a nutritionist and I'm going to help women with weight loss resistance. And so that's exactly what I did. And I had this great thriving practice and I'm like, oh, I've got it all figured out. And if somebody had said to me then, what do you think your perimenopause is going to be like? I'd be like, I'll probably have a couple of months of some hot flashes like my mom, and then I'm going to lose my period, and then voila, I'm going to be in menopause. And I thought 100%, I got it nailed down, no problem at all. And at 42, I was put on the wrong medication for thyroid. They changed something and long story short, so it would be too much to explain here, but basically I got sent into menopause at 42. Where
Overnight, it was
overnight, it was within 3 months, I had gained 15 pounds. And so here I am, the weight loss coach, rapidly gaining weight. Same thing. I started getting all of the symptoms back again where the digestion was off, the menstrual migraines were severe. I had super itchy skin. My breasts got super inflamed. I was so depressed. I couldn't get off my couch. My period went missing. I started having hot flashes all day, night sweats at nighttime, every symptom you could imagine. Just check it off. I got it all. And I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
And once again, massive wake up call. And I thought, my gosh, if this can happen to me, a weight loss coach who knows everything there is to know about weight loss at this point for women, I really understood weight loss resistance. I had been diving into the hormone piece, not as much as I did after this, but I was familiar with it. I was familiar with thyroid. I was familiar with food sensitivities and toxic overload and all of the things. And so if that could happen to me, once again, this can happen then to anyone. And then, so I started going down the rabbit hole and realized, oh my gosh, over 80% of women are going to have symptoms of perimenopause. 25% of those are going to have severe symptoms.
Yes.
So that's 85% of the female population. So that's almost everybody. So menopause doesn't say, because you're healthy, Michele, and you're in this industry, you'll be fine.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. And for sure, if you're an unhealthy person who's drinking all the time and you're overweight and you're not exercising, you're not eating well, you have a higher likelihood of having some worse, more symptoms of menopause and perimenopause. But a person that is extremely healthy and doing absolutely everything right and has her whole life, let's say, perfect. Let's say she's 100% perfect. She could still suffer immensely from menopausal symptoms. And it's terrible because those women, the women that do take care of themselves, like your listeners and you and myself, where we feel like we're really putting in the efforts, and then we get hammered with some of these symptoms that is debilitating. And we were talking about this before, like how many women have to quit their jobs?
Yeah.
These high-powered women that can't handle their high-powered job anymore because of their menopausal symptoms.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And less than 7% of physicians are being taught anything about menopause, and none of them are being taught about perimenopause, which is up to 10, 12 years of suffering that can happen. And that is very common. This isn't a rare thing. This is extremely common.
Yeah.
So that's how, and then after that, I became a hormone specialist, and I'm like, that's it. I have to spread the word. I have to educate women. This is ridiculous. And I opened up my own telemedicine HRT clinic and have my own line of hormone. Like I am trying to have this be accessible to all women that want it.
It's so important. I read the other day that in North America, in medical school, 4 hours is dedicated to menopause education. That blows my mind, first of all. So, if you go to your GP being like, I can't sleep at night, I have hot sweats, and you're above 40, immediately they're like, oh, well, it's menopause. And even just saying that that coming out of my mouth, that's not even the definition of menopause.
No.
Right?
Right.
And many clients that come to me, if they're in their early 40s, they say to me, oh, like my doctor just put me back on the pill.
Oh,
and I'm like, why?
All the time.
Like
all the time.
Because they don't know. They do not know. I remember years ago, I feel like you just reflected my own story back to me when you were telling me about your own stuff. Mine happened earlier. I think I was like right when I turned 30, I had like a huge emotional stressor year, or maybe 18 months, and it really plummeted my hormones. And I went to my doctor because we're conditioned to believe that's where you go when you don't feel well, right?
Yeah. Especially Canadians, hey?
Yes.
Michele?
Yes. Hey. And I remember asking her, I was like, I'd like some hormone testing. And she goes, why? And I was like, I'm just not feeling that great. And she's like, well, do you have a regular period? And I was like, yeah. She goes, then you're fine. And I was like, okay. So I went to a naturopath, decided to go that route and pay for it and all the things and whatever. And came back estrogen dominant, tanked progesterone. It was high stress, right? And the same thing, we saw that tanked cortisol. We saw that low DHEA. We saw low thyroid function. All of it intertwined was showing that exact same, like literally as you were speaking it, I was like, I know exactly what you're saying.
Wow.
And women who are like just starting perimenopause, let's say like their late 30s, early 40s, the doctors are just putting them on the pill. Like ignore the problem here, but they tell them it'll fix it, or they tell them it'll balance it, but it's not. It's a Band-Aid. It's an ignore this problem until you don't need to be on it at 55.
Yeah. And they'll say, if you can't have HRT, that will give you cancer. I hear this on a daily basis. This is not anything that's going away right now. Everyone thinks, oh, there's this big menopause movement and awareness happening. Guess what? It's not in the medical system.
Right.
Doctors are not trained, as we just talked about. They're not trained in bioidentical hormone therapy. They actually have to go get specialized training in it if they want to know about it. But they do know about birth control pills. And so they'll say, HRT will give you cancer. I'll put you on birth control. Well, guess what? It's the birth control that actually raises your risk of cancer, not bioidentical hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
Hormone replacement therapy reduces your risk of cancer, all cancers.
Yeah, let's actually just really speak on the difference so that my listeners don't go to their doctors and be like, I want HRT. And then they end up on the pill because the doctor's just like, no, this is fine. Like, let's talk about the difference between synthetic HRT and bioidentical hormone replacement therapy.
And birth control.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
birth control, people think is hormones.
Right.
It's not. They're actually endocrine disruptors, hormone disruptors. They're chemicals, right? So they're going to
suppresses ovulation. It suppresses progesterone so that you do not ovulate. So you cannot get pregnant. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And causes a whole suite of problems, health problems, right? I just was talking to my brother-in-law and he said, oh yeah, I've got my daughter on birth control. Like from the time she was 16, I put her on birth control. I ain't risking anything. I'm gonna put my other daughter on it now too. I said, well, is she sexual? No, but I'm going to put her on it. And I said, okay, do you know what the consequences of that are? What do you mean? I said, do you know the health consequences of that? There's health consequences? That's what he said. Like dead serious. He goes, what do you mean? Like he was shocked.
There's
and I'm like, there you go.
Consequences to anything you put in your mouth, let alone the hundreds of the feedback loops that happen when you suppress your hormone.
I'm like, what do you think is going to happen 20 years down the road if your daughter's been on a chemical that has suppressed her natural hormone function for 20 years and then now she wants to have a baby? Yeah. What do you think is going to happen? You know? And it's just like, it's insane the lack of awareness around this. And then we've got synthetic HRT, which has been around since the 50s. And people will sometimes say that the estrogen wasn't necessarily synthetic because it came from a horse, right? It came from pregnant horses' urine. And that was the most prescribed medication.
Mm-hmm. I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Is it true that pregnant horses, have 23 different types of estrogen versus women who have 3?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
So
it's not like ours.
No. So
it's not bioidentical.
Essentially, taking estrogen that doesn't even exist in our bodies.
We're mostly getting estrone when we take oral Premarin. So this is from the pregnant horse's urine. It's converting to estrone, which is one of our hormones. But then we're also getting all the rest of it, right? But what's interesting is it was the number one most prescribed medication in America in the late 1900s. Most prescribed out of everything. And so you can imagine how many women were taking Premarin. They thought it was fantastic and that there was no harm in it, et cetera, et cetera. And what's funny is the research actually shows, like when you start digging through all the research in the Women's Health Initiative and all of these big studies that have been done, we are still better off using Premarin than no hormones at all. Isn't that fascinating?
Interesting. So
because estrone can convert to estradiol in our body. Mm-hmm. So you're still getting that most important hormone that we need for anti-aging benefits and health benefits, right? So Premarin was actually okay. The problem was after 10 years, there was an increased risk of heart attack and stroke because you were taking estrogen orally. Same with birth control. Taking it orally increases a woman's risk of heart attack and stroke and blood clots, right? And so same thing. But if you take it transdermally, there's no increased risk of heart attack and stroke. I had a woman in my group it was on Instagram. And she was saying that her patient, she was a friend of mine. She said that her patient came to her and her doctor had told her that if she used 2 patches a week, not 1 patch a week, that was going to increase her risk of heart attack and stroke. That's not true. And that's something that doctors are also telling women all the time. If you take HRT, bioidentical HRT even, it's going to increase your risk of heart attack and stroke. But transdermal does not. And you can find that very clearly in the research. But anyways, Premarin, after 10 years, that did increase, and it did some other things. It did convert highly to the estrone, which is more inflammatory, more proliferative, more connected to breast cancer. So it wasn't ideal. And what they found was it did make the uterine lining grow. And so they had to bring in a fake progesterone to counterbalance that growth. And that was progestins. And some of that same progestins is what's in birth control. And it's the progestins that caused the increased risk of breast cancer in the WHI study. It wasn't the estrogen, it was the progestin. And there's been studies that have replicated that now, that have been recent studies, like the 7 million study done through Medicare, that showed the same thing, that progestin increased your risk of breast cancer. But if you use progesterone that's bioidentical, it was breast protective.
Yes.
So now we have bioidentical progesterone and estrogen and testosterone, which all three are derived from either the soy plant or the yam plant. It is chemically taken out, right? So it's like we extract this chemical out of that's naturally occurring in these plants. It's synthesized in a lab to be bioidentical, body identical, no different in the makeup hormone, so that we can put it on transdermally, sometimes take progesterone orally, but it's bioidentical. Your body knows no different, that it does not look like horses. It looks like yours. Right. And that's what we want. We want to use nothing but bioidentical. It's the safest way to do it. We don't want estrogen taken orally. Even bioidentical, it's going to raise your risk of heart attack and stroke. It's going to increase binding proteins, and it's a whole mess. And so we don't want that either. But transdermal all the way for all three of those is great.
Yeah. Okay. So when you are talking about what you specialize in, it is bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. I just want to get clear about that. Yep. And I also want listeners to understand that in Canada, at least, they cannot just go to their GP and say, I want bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, not traditional HRT, unless they are qualified to actually prescribe that. They would have to go to a functional doctor, naturopath who specialize in it, and then compounding pharmacy. Is that correct?
No, because most doctors will prescribe the pharmaceutical brands of bioidentical hormones. So just because a pharmaceutical company is making it, it doesn't mean that it's not bioidentical. Okay. So any estrogen patch is bioidentical. Oral progesterone, if it's Prometrium, that's the brand name, bioidentical. There's Vagifem, so there's different ones for vaginal dryness that have bioidentical estrogen in it. We have estrogel, that's bioidentical. I use that myself. And then the creams, because they can't be a patent if it's a cream. So that's why the patch it's patented, because of the delivery form can be patented. Same with oral progesterone, but you can't patent cream. And so to get the cream, so then you can dial in a dose for that individual, that has to be compounded. Yeah, and that's not made by a pharmaceutical company. Then you're going to a compounding pharmacy and you're going to get very specific. Like, I want this woman to be taking 0.5 milligrams twice a day in a cream form or a vaginal form, suppository, whatever it might be. And then you can get very specific with your dosing.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. With a pharmaceutical company, I assume they are going to want to be able to replicate what they are producing. Therefore, having a patch, for instance, would probably have X amount of milligrams or whatever dosage it is in every patch that they have. Yes. So it would not be bio-individual.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. They have different measurements for patches. You know, you can do the 0.025, and then it goes to 0.05, and then 0.1, 0.075 as well.
Okay.
But estrogel, only one dose in estrogel. Testosterone, there is no testosterone for women. There's only androgel. It's only for men, which is ridiculous.
I was going to say that's very
It's our most abundant hormone when we're in our fertile years, but no, it's not
very important for women. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know what? It's important to weight train and eat protein all through your life to make sure that you can keep that up. Wow.
Yeah. And you can get it compounded. I mean, I'm in Canada. I in our telemedicine clinic, we prescribe testosterone cypionate for women, or a compounded cream.
Yeah. Okay. That's all really good to know. So when do you think, so if people are going to their doctors, they're already suffering. Sorry. Women are going to their doctors and they're already suffering. Doctor, I can't sleep, hot sweats, I'm irritable, I'm anxious, depressed, all the list of symptoms that you told us about. How do we know when we should be going to our doctors, if that's the first sign, or maybe that's not the first sign?
Yeah. And this is, I always say, try with your doctor first, because that's going to probably be the least expensive, least hassle, right? And there are doctors that are willing to learn and they're willing to prescribe. Majority aren't, because they don't know. And, with the first signs of perimenopause, like heavy bleeding, you'll be given the option of birth control, an ablation, or a hysterectomy. Those are the three most common things that are prescribed. Yeah. it's a progesterone deficiency and we lose our progesterone first. And that's one of the first signs, right? Is a little bit of weight gain and maybe an uptick in anxiety and insomnia, and then in the heavy bleeding. And so if you're noticing changes in your cycle and changes in your mental health, changes in your sleep, changes in your body composition, these are all signs that my hormones are starting to drop here. Maybe I'm not ovulating as often, because as we get older, we don't ovulate as often because we only have a certain amount of eggs. And this is happening earlier and earlier because of what's happening in our environment with the toxic load. So women are hitting this, like they're losing their ovulation earlier and earlier with age right now. So if this is happening to you, you could go to your doctor and you could say, test my hormones. And if they're willing to do it, great. But it probably isn't going to show you anything, because the ranges are ridiculous and they'll never tell you to do it on a certain day. So you could go like day 3 of your cycle and it's going to look like you have no estrogen and progesterone. If you go on day 12, it's going to look like you have way too much estrogen. And so you want to go on day 19, 20, or 21 of a 28-day cycle, or 7 days before the onset of a period. So that's your first thing. So at least you can do that. Your listeners can at least know, okay, well, I'm going to go on this day so I can have a good idea of what my hormones are doing. But then the ranges are huge. It's like if you're from 50 to 300 on certain in the luteal phase of estrogen, you're fine.
Right.
And the thing is every single woman is going to react differently to the drop of hormones. For instance, Michele, you could drop in estrogen and you don't even feel it. You get no symptoms. When myself, if I lose even a little bit of estrogen, hot flashes, night sweats, I'm gaining weight, I feel like crap. Like I'm very estrogenic. I always have been. Even my genetic profile tells me that. And then you might lose testosterone just a little bit and your labs look fantastic, but you feel it. You don't have a libido anymore. You're not putting muscle on anymore. You're gaining weight. You're tired. You're depressed. You're foggy brained, because your body thrives on testosterone. Mm-hmm. So you really you can do labs, but you want to match it with, what are you feeling? What are your symptoms? And in those early days, there's a lot of supplementation and biohacking stuff that you can do to really, it's almost like you're going to squeeze out the last of what's in those ovaries, right? So you can support the body with phytoestrogens, Vitex, adrenal support, making sure that you're doing the stress reducing exercises, that you're, taking care of your body, you're giving it nutrients, you're not fasting too much, you're lifting heavy. All of those things will really impact you. But there's a tipping point. And every woman needs to hear this, where it doesn't matter what you take, what supplement you take, what diet you're following, how much you're intermittent fasting, where you cannot fast or supplement or diet your way out of ovarian loss. And nothing is going to bring those hormones back.
Right.
And each person is going to get a different set of side effects, some from none to severe. Or when I say none, the problem with the people that get no symptoms, the women that get no symptoms, is they think they're fine. And they're like, I don't need HRT. And they wear it like a badge of honor. I'm saying, no, I'm doing this naturally. I don't need the HRT. Well, let me ask all of those women, can you feel your bones deteriorating? Because guess what? That's already happened.
Right.
Can you feel the collagen loss in your face? Can you feel the effects on your heart? What about your brain? Like these things are happening silently behind the closed doors from the hormonal loss.
Yeah.
And this happens to every single woman. No woman is exempt from these effects of hormonal loss. Yeah. Metabolic issues. I see that across the board.
Me too.
Doesn't matter how healthy you are and how well you eat and how much you exercise. We see women's blood sugar go up and we see cholesterol go up when they start losing estrogen.
Yeah. I think that, well, we know that women are not educated on the protective effects of a menstruating woman. So our hormone levels when we are still menstruating are actually so protective that as you get to postmenopause or in that process in perimenopause, as you're losing your hormones, that those protective measures go with it.
Yes.
And so even though menopause is natural and none of us are getting out without going through it,
yes,
it's actually not the most healthy thing for women.
It isn't at all. There was a study done that they tested women's biological age. So chronological age being like how many years have you been here? And then biological age is how fast are you aging on the inside? And it showed that women in menopause for, I think it was it was less than that. In 3 months of being in menopause, they aged biologically 9 years.
Oh my goodness.
And we see this in so many areas of the body. And we have to quit calling these sex hormones. We have to call them life hormones, because it's not just about being fertile and having a period. This isn't the only purpose behind estrogen and progesterone. We are rich with receptors all over our body, and they help every organ to function better. And so as you're starting to lose, so perimenopause, like I said, mid to late 30s is when it slowly starts to begin on average. As you're going into your 40s, you're going to really start to lose that progesterone because you're no longer ovulating. You can't produce progesterone if you're not ovulating. And then in your mid 40s, you'll start to lose estrogen. And that's going to have the biggest impact on women's health and metabolic issues. Everybody thinks estrogen makes them fat, but too little estrogen will make you gain far more weight than too much.
Yeah.
And that's for multiple reasons. I mean, it helps you process glucose. It helps you with muscle growth, and muscle is our biggest processor of sugar. It helps with leptin sensitivity and hunger signals in our brain. Like, we need estrogen to be metabolically healthy. It is the most important. And so you see diabetes going up, Alzheimer's going up, like in women, especially these things, because we lose our estrogen. Yeah. And so many hormone clinics, even functional practitioners, in that perimenopausal phase, which is when it's like, that's the worst of it, this 10-year period, because average age of menopause is 52. So you're thinking, okay, if I'm starting to lose progesterone at 38, and then I'm losing my estrogen at 45, you've got this 10, 12-year window where you're being refused treatment, where doctors are going, you can't have estrogen. You're not in menopause. Estrogen's dangerous. And it's like, oh, really? I've had copious amounts of estrogen my entire life, boatloads of it. And now you're telling me that this is a death sentence when I'm losing it. That makes no sense.
So what do you suggest? Somebody at 38, if their doctor's not going to go that route, do they come to somebody like you and say, like, I just want some baseline. I want some information. Can you help me understand where I am? Yeah.
Yep.
Like 38?
Yes, we see quite a few. Typically, what's needed most in that like late 30, early 40s is progesterone. Mm-hmm. And that can just be a lifesaver during that time. It'll help with the periods not being so heavy, and sleep gets better. And progesterone acts on the GABA receptors of your brain. So it helps to induce sleep. It's like it turns up the volume on GABA, which is great. It's great. We want that. So you'll hear women say like, oh, my anxiety gets so bad in the second half of my cycle. I don't feel good. And it helps with our thyroid to function better. And it's calming. It's it's beautiful. It's great. It definitely makes you a little bit more on the, so estrogen's going to make you want to go out and be social and exercise more, and you have more energy. And then progesterone's more calming. Maybe we'll do some yoga. Maybe we're going to stay home this week. We're not so social anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to curl up on the couch and watch a movie.
Yes. And that's okay. And that's good. That's progesterone. It's calming. It's great hormone. And so we usually, women, that is more on symptoms, right? Like, so if she's coming in and she's like, oh my gosh, like something's changed here. I'm bleeding out every time I have my period. I'm going through a tampon every 10 minutes. And it's those symptoms. It's not so much on what's going on in the blood work. Like I said before, it's such a wide range. Like if you're under 10 on your progesterone on day 21, that would be a sure sign. Okay, I need some progesterone. But even if it's like 11, 12, or sometimes you have a good cycle, sometimes you don't. It probably means you didn't ovulate. If it's a cycle that you feel bad in, and you're getting more period cramps or more breast inflammation, that kind of thing, that's a sign that you probably didn't ovulate that month. And so you could use progesterone almost as needed. I tell women, sometimes you'll feel like you ovulate and you can tell that you did and you feel good. And then it's like, well, then maybe you don't use progesterone that month, or you use just a little bit just to top it up.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. That's good to know. I want to ask you a personal question just because I
Yeah.
know that you are a female founder, badass businesswoman. 42, hit perimenopause like a brick wall, or it
Yep.
hit you like a brick wall, rather.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
how did it affect what you were doing? I know it launched you into what you're doing now, but was there wavering in your career? Was there a lack of confidence, a lack of creativity, a
Oh
lack
yeah.
of leadership? Like, tell me what it did to you emotionally, because I don't know if we touched on it after I hit record, but we definitely touched on it previously. 30% of women leave their job midlife because they just can't deal with it anymore. So
Yeah.
how did it affect you?
It was horrible because I was in the limelight already at that point,
Uh,
right? So being on social media, and I was seeing people in person, and I was so embarrassed. I do a talk when I go to speak at conferences now where I actually show the before and after picture, because people they look at me now and they're like, nah. And I show them the picture of me in my bra and exercise pants, at the highest weight I'd ever been. And I look miserable. My skin looks terrible. And I've got this great big menopause belly on me. And I was horrified. And it happened so fast. And it was so embarrassing. I kept going because of my passion for business, my passion for hormones and women's health, and just seeing that we're so left out of things, out of research, out of care. I mean, if this happened to a man, are you kidding me? If 30% of men left their jobs in midlife because of what was happening to them, losing their testosterone, we would never put up with it. If a man walked into the doctor's office and told his doctor, like, I'm 45, doc, and I've gained 20 pounds and my penis seems to be shriveling up and the skin's getting super dry and thin. And every time I try and have sex with my wife, it tears.
yeah. Oh my
What
gosh.
if the doctor just said, you know what, Bill, just put a little bit of KY jelly on. This is totally normal. Totally normal. If you want, I could put you on a birth control pill.
Right.
Or we could just remove your balls because you're not having kids anymore. Let's just get rid of them. Because that is what we're being told. We're
Yeah.
being told, let's take out the uterus then. If you're bleeding heavily and you're having problems. Oh, you have vaginal dryness? Okay, well, you can use some KY jelly. That's fine.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
Suck it up. Here's your antidepressant.
Yeah.
It would never happen. Look at, like, guys started having problems with erections and Viagra was like the biggest selling drug in the world. It's like, oh my gosh, we have something for you. Don't you worry, man.
So
God forbid you can't get an erection.
we just got my husband's insurance benefits. They renewed or whatever for his job. And it just so happens that his benefits now cover erectile dysfunction drug. And my immediate reaction was, so what did they add in there for women?
Yeah.
I said that. I said, what did they add in there for women? And he kind of joked, he's amazing. And by no means is this any kind of definition of him, but he joked and he was like, well, this is for women too. And I was like,
yeah, right.
I was like, but really, what was added to your benefits for women come midlife when they are struggling with libido, or they are struggling with vaginal dryness, or they are struggling with hormone dysfunction? And he just kind of didn't say anything. And I was like, interesting how that just happened.
Yeah. And more than 50% of women will have urogenital issues and vaginal dryness from the loss of their hormones. I have had clients that have told me, like, oh, I haven't had sex with my partner in years because I tear every time I try and have sex. And it's like, why hasn't your doctor addressed that?
Right. That's not okay.
Unheard. Like, that should never, ever happen. That's what you have to go through. And these women are devastated because it's taking such a toll on their relationship.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Right? Like, this is insane that this is still happening to women.
And a lot of the women that women are going to see a lot of the doctors that women are going to see are women.
Yes. I've heard horror stories about female doctors and what they tell my female patients.
Oh my gosh, that
like
makes me
horror
feel really
stories
bad.
where it's like, what? I can't even believe another female would say this to another woman.
And you know what? Women don't know the questions to ask. And oftentimes, if I have to send my clients to a doctor, for whatever reason, like I don't prescribe medication, pharmaceuticals, or anything like that, but I will literally create a list of questions. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you need to get the answers to every one of these before you move forward with anything. And otherwise, they just like come back and tell me what their doctor said. And then I have a million questions.
Yeah.
And they're like, I didn't know to ask that. And I was like, of course you didn't know to ask that. Why would you know to ask that? But your doctor should be forthcoming and transparent about it.
And if they don't have the answer, they need to go out and get it and not just shut the woman down, which is what happens. And I see that all the time where the woman will come back and be like, well, my doctor said that no, this causes cancer, and they won't prescribe it to me.
I wonder
like, okay, well, did they have proof of that?
Yeah. I wonder if that's more of like I actually just don't know the answer. So I'm just going to say this thing to kind of shut you up. You know, there's like a liability thing if they don't actually know. That's unbelievable and really makes me feel really sad for women who are already in a state where they think they're losing their minds.
Yeah.
Right. And then the person they're supposed to be going to trust with their health, you know, isn't doing them justice. And I'm not saying that this is across the board, but you have to be an advocate. You have to be an advocate. You have to push and you have to do your own research and find people like you or me who can guide them.
Yeah. I think we have to stop with this reliance on doctors, like know their place. We need doctors. They're not all bad. Like they haven't been trained in this. This isn't their fault. It's like, yes, they could go out and get extra training, but why would they? Why would they spend the money and to go and take this course in bioidentical hormones when that's not what they're practicing? They're practicing family medicine. So they need to know how to treat, like with a prescription.
Right.
Like how to Band-Aid with a prescription.
Right.
And so, yeah, go try your doctor first. Like I said, I always say that. Go try first. But don't expect that they're going to know how to do this and how to do it properly. And it is a nuanced practice. Like hormones aren't just slap it on, every person gets the same dose, see you later. Heck no, it is. It can be so complicated and like delivery form and dosage and type. And oh my goodness, it's ridiculous. Like gut health, stress, like how high is your stress? Because that's going to affect how your body's going to take on HRT. Like it's crazy how many things can go into it.
Absolutely.
So go to the doctor. If that doctor can't help you, then don't be upset about it. Close the door on that and walk away and be like, okay, I'm going to go now see somebody that specializes in this. And there is help for every price point. And I want to make that really clear because a lot of women think, well, I can't get the help I need because I can't afford to see a naturopath. I can't afford to see a functional medicine practitioner. I can't afford to go to a hormone clinic because it's too much money. Well, there is so many options out there now. There's a lot of online telemedicine clinics that have very affordable hormone replacement therapy. They're not very hands-on, but it's there. In the United States, that you can buy hormone creams over the counter. I'll pump up my own line here, but I'll take this as an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Which is why I created it, though. I wanted women to have access to it. So we've got a progesterone cream, we've got an estrogen cream, melatonin oil and progesterone oil. And it's been incredible. And the feedback's been incredible because women have access to this and it's really affordable. It's more affordable than getting a prescription for these hormones. And they can just order it without a prescription. And that's great. Now, many need help. And so there's membership communities where there's tons of menopause membership communities for a very low cost where you can get the help that you need. We do have one too, but I'm not saying anyone has to come to me. I just want women to go out and get the help that they need. So whoever you connect with, great, go see them. But there's tons of menopause coaches. There's lots of people that are doing memberships. There's very affordable hormone replacement therapy, telemedicine clinics now throughout the United States. Canada, we definitely have it a lot worse because you can't buy it over the counter. You have a very hard time finding hormone clinics in Canada that are affordable. I don't know, is your listenership mostly Canadian or is it American?
No, it's all over North America.
It's all over. Yeah. Okay. So yes, you can get it in Canada. What's nice is naturopaths in certain provinces can prescribe estrogen and progesterone, not testosterone, but they can give you those two. And if you've got medical coverage, that will be covered to an extent, like a portion of that will be covered. Your medications can get covered. So there is ways to do it. You just have to find the right person.
Yeah. I just wanted to check in. Do you have a few more minutes? Because I have a couple more questions.
Yeah.
So one question, your products that you just pitched, which I love, and I would have asked in the very end, but I'm glad you did that. Can Canadians order it over the border?
Well, I have opened it up to Canadians a few times, and I
Okay.
just recently had to shut it back down because the tariffs and also the postal strike that's happening. We had two clients got dinged with it coming into Canada, and we weren't getting dinged at all. It was going through no problem. And then we had two customers that got heavily dinged with some sort of duty fee, tariff. I'm not sure what, but and they had to send it back because they were like, I'm not paying for that. Like, it was like one lady, she had ordered quite a few bottles, but it was something like $300.
In
She got
duty.
dinged. Yeah. She ordered about $400 worth of product though.
I mean, if you did that monthly, it would add up anyway, right? You could, yeah. So, okay.
So there are ways. There is a company called Ship It To, and it's just shipit2.com. That is a company that you can pay a small fee, and basically you order the creams with their shipping address. It gets shipped to them. I think it's in California, and then from there they ship it to you in Canada.
Ooh, that's good to know.
Yeah. Which can still be more affordable than purchasing at least the compounded creams. Or if you don't have insurance to cover prescriptions in Canada, that this is going to be cheaper. Even if
Interesting.
you have to pay that company and you got to pay, like, everything's in US dollar or whatever. I think it's, you're going to pay about $70 for a bottle of cream, but that bottle of cream, like the progesterone, would last somebody probably 2.5 months.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So $30 a month, when here it would cost you about 50, if not more, per month for a compounded progesterone cream.
Right. Interesting.
Mhm.
My next question. I have a client who, or I've had, she's not my client anymore. It's been years since I've worked with her, but she had an IUD and she had been on this IUD, or not this one in particular, but she had been on some type of birth control for 35 years. And she went to a naturopath. This is her story. She went to a naturopath for bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And this naturopath just gave her progesterone cream, tested her blood, got her baseline, but with an IUD in. So it would have been suppressed, and then just gave her a prescription and was like, we'll see how it goes. And when she told me this years ago, I just like almost fell off my chair because I was like, well, first of all, what are we layering? Like, you have this thing that's supposed to be suppressing your hormones, but now you're trying to increase. Like, what is happening? And the doctor had no, like, and she had gone and said, I want to take this IUD out. And the doctor basically said, you don't have to, we'll just layer it on. How do you feel about that? Because it was like, you need a new doctor. I immediately was like, you need to find somebody else.
Well, I always tell women that have the IUD, like, I always ask, will you consider taking it out? Especially if you're in your 40s, right? Like,
Sure.
come on, or 50s, for heaven's sakes. Like, get it out, And if they're not willing, but they're having, and they show that they have no progesterone, I will layer it on top so that they can get that progesterone, right? So the IUD, the Mirena, is going to go right into that cervix and stop an implantation in the cervix. But systemically, you are going to be suppressing your natural progesterone. So you could still benefit from progesterone because you're not adding on the synthetic progesterone, you're adding in progesterone systemically.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to get the benefits to the brain, to the heart, to the bones that progesterone can give. So you'll still get those benefits. It's not going to make you more fertile or anything like that because that IUD is right in the uterus.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. So, but I don't like to do that. Definitely not. And I would much rather a woman just get it out, especially if she's on it because she was bleeding heavy. It's not for birth control. Then it's like, my God, let's just get you on some natural progesterone, get rid of that thing. And the progesterone is what your body was asking for.
Yeah.
That's getting to the root of the problem. It's
Yeah.
not, you don't need to suppress it and band-aid it with a synthetic chemical because the Mirena, every woman's told that, oh, it doesn't go systemic. Yes, it freaking
Yes, it
does.
does. Of course it does.
It takes a little while, but it does.
Yeah.
100%. I've seen enough labs to know that, yeah, a woman on the Mirena after a few, like, she's got no progesterone.
Right. I mean, that's the whole point of it, ultimately.
Yes, because if you're not, it's shutting down ovulation.
Right.
And ovulation is when you produce the progesterone.
Right.
And it's not going to give you all those benefits. It's just stopping the bleeding.
Right.
Nothing else.
Right.
You're still going to have the anxiety, the insomnia, the water retention, all the things that happen. Your breasts aren't going to get protected anymore. You're going to have all this estrogen, which is proliferative. and you're not going to have any protection on the breasts. You need progesterone to protect your breasts.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you said that because I was, again, like this was a few years ago and I was just like, this is not okay. This is not where you should be. She wanted it out. And this naturopath was just
It's
like,
like,
no, don't
go
worry
and get
about
it.
it.
Oh,
We'll just
yeah, no,
guess.
no. Get a
She
new
literally
doctor.
said, we'll just guess and see how you feel. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. I don't ever
No,
want
get
a
a
doctor to
different
say that to
doctor.
me. Yeah.
Never,
No.
never. And so for your listeners, you have a lot of high powered women, a lot of women that are running their own businesses and in the workforce. Know that it is way better for you, and you're going to avoid a lot of issues if you get on top of your hormones as early as possible. So if you're in your late 30s, early 40s, oh my gosh, yes, go and get tested, find a good functional practitioner, find a good hormone clinic, whatever, but start now. Because if you can catch it as it's going down, you're going to save your skin for years. Like the trajectory of estrogen and collagen go together.
Yeah.
So as estrogen's going down, so does collagen. It's the same trajectory. And the face just starts to fall. I tell you what, you use estrogen cream on your face. Like we have this estrogen cream. It's incredible what it does. It builds collagen in your skin. It shrinks your pores. It's like shrinks wrinkle depth. It's incredible.
Well, your skin
And then
looks
you
beautiful.
also, thank you. And it didn't used to look like this. When I hit the perimenopause early, I got really enlarged pores and my skin aged so fast. And I went and did all this research, found out you can use topical estrogen on the face. And in the research, it showed within 6 months, it shrunk pores from 60 to 100%. It increased type 3 collagen and it decreased wrinkle depth.
Wow.
I was like sold. And I started using estrogen on my face at 42 and it has saved my skin. And so it is like one of the best kept secrets. I'm telling you, it's like, I have famous people that buy my face cream, my estrogen face cream.
I love that. I love that. We are going to need the
incredible.
link. We are going to need the link for the show notes.
Yeah. And we'll give a coupon code to your listeners and yeah.
Great.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so get on top of it early. Don't be afraid to use estrogen. It decreases your risk of breast cancer. Everybody get that through your head. Women that replace their estrogen have a decrease in developing breast cancer. And if you do get breast cancer, you have a like 2 times decrease the mortality rate. If you had used estrogen and you ended up getting breast cancer anyways, the mortality rate from that decreases by like 50% or something ridiculous. Anyways, it's safe to say, we know 100% it can be breast protective. Yeah. You just always want to pair it with that progesterone. Estrogen doesn't cause breast cancer. If it did, every 25-year-old woman would be riddled with it because that's when we have copious amounts of estrogen in the body. Estrogen is for the businesswoman. I'm telling you, it's your best friend. It's the hormone that's going to keep you metabolically sound, but it's going to keep your brain sharp.
Yes.
Right? We are rich with estradiol receptors in our brain. So you need estradiol, not estriol, not estrone, estradiol. Yeah. You need the estradiol to have, short-term memory. You need it for just that foggy brain that starts to happen. That'll clear the fog. So you don't have to quit your job. It gets rid of the hot flashes and night sweats. It's like, it is your best friend. And as it starts going down, I'm telling you, start replacing it. Yeah. And yes, estrogen does this at the end. And so some doctors will say, well, estrogen can get really high when you're in perimenopause, so we don't want to use it. That, once again, no. Let's not wait for a woman to gain 20 pounds, 50 pounds, hot mess, not sleeping, quits her job, has mental health, loses her marriage. Okay, now we can give it to you. Right. That makes no sense. No. Let's give it now and it'll actually smooth that roller coaster ride out. So you don't have the big ups and downs like you were having of estrogen. And you can always, if you're having a flux of estrogen where it goes really high, you can always taper off of it for that month because guess what? Next month it might plummet. Right. So you work with a practitioner with this where it's like, okay, you're having all the signs and symptoms of estrogen loss. Let's top yours up and so that you feel better. And women will say within 2-3 days, they're like, oh my God, I feel alive again. Yeah. I got my brain back. my vaginal tissues come back to life. Like I have women say this, my libido goes up. I'm sleeping better. I feel better. I got more energy. My mental health, I'm not just depressed. Like we need estrogen to make serotonin.
Yes.
Our neurotransmitter that makes us happy. It's the antidepressant. We need the progesterone for anti-anxiety. So know that the earlier you start, actually the better, if they're truly dropping. I don't tell women in their 30s that have lots of estrogen and progesterone to start replacing their hormones. No, it's not this quick fix thing. But when you're losing it, yes, you want to top it up, and because nothing's going to bring those levels back, like I said. So start topping it up and optimizing those hormones to where you feel your best, which is going to look different for each person. We always want to make sure our estrogen's at a certain level, especially when we're fully in menopause and on HRT, because that's where you're going to get the health benefits to the brain, the bones, the heart. It has to get up to a certain level. And that's, once again, it's all nuanced, right? Like for each person, but you want to make sure to get that protection that you get up to that certain level. It's not the lowest dose possible to get rid of your hot flashes, which is another thing that's going wrong in the medical society. And so working with a knowledgeable practitioner that understands where you need to get to with your hormones to get the most out of it, you're going to reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by like 40%. You're going to reduce your risk of Alzheimer's. There was a study that showed if you replace your estrogen for 6 years or longer, up to 75% reduction in developing Alzheimer's and dementia. That's crazy. Wow. That study was done on 400,000 women.
Wow.
Hello. What drug is there out there that does that? It's going to reduce your risk of all causes of death by 30%. What supplement does that? What biohack does that has that kind of number? It's going to reduce your risk of all cancers, reduce your risk of liver disease, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, mental health problems. We see that women have the highest rate of suicide, death by suicide, between the ages of like 45 and 62, right when we're losing our hormones.
Right.
And it's like, of all the things that we do to help anti-age ourselves, right? Like the amount of cosmetic surgery we get, and oh my gosh, the supplements, the exercise, the red light therapy, the skincare, and then you're not going to take hormones?
Right.
That makes no sense.
What you're trying to do in your 40s and 50s is look like you're 20, but to look like you're 20, you need hormones like you had when you were 20.
Yep.
Yeah. So everybody should be on bioidentical hormones. Every female should be on bioidentical hormones at some point.
There is a small group of women that shouldn't be. But in most cases, most women can safely take hormones. And if you are a woman that is at risk for, like, let's say you've had estrogen positive breast cancer, even there, like the research it's starting to come out now that if women replace their hormones after breast cancer, even estrogen positive breast cancer, it doesn't increase your risk of getting it back.
Interesting.
Yeah. But this is all very, new, and you want to work with somebody that's knowledgeable about this.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Do you run blood serum or so so your levels are based on blood? Not
do urine? A lot of urine testing. Yeah.
Dutch in particular?
Yeah. Dutch. And we just started running physician labs, which is a lot less expensive than Dutch.
Okay.
And so we like to see, we would love to see, unfortunately it's expensive, but we would love to see every woman on HRT at some point doing a urine metabolite test so we can see how you're breaking it down. It can tell you a lot.
Absolutely.
Way more than blood does.
I agree. I run a Dutch on every one of my clients as well because there's just so much information.
So much information.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now that Physician Labs has come out, it's substantially cheaper. So
okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know. And then my last question is, how long should women be on this?
Well, Menopause Society actually came out a couple years ago and changed their stance on that, because it used to be no more than 10 years post-menopause. That was because of that increased risk of heart attack and stroke from Premarin. Right. So when you were taking oral estrogen, they saw that after 10 years of use, that the increase would go up a little bit for heart attack and stroke. So now they've changed it because we're not using Premarin anymore. And they're saying now they've come out to say, you can stay on it as long as you want.
Yes.
And it's not I'll take it for 10 years and then I'm good. No, as soon as you remove those hormones, you will then rapidly start aging.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And all of those things can come back, right? Like I've had 70-year-old clients who are having hot flashes. and night sweats. Like that's ridiculous.
Nobody
So
wants to be dealing with that at 40, not at 70.
no. And so if you want to continue to protect all of your organs and your bones and your brain, why would you come off of it?
Yeah. That's so
When
good to
they're
know.
showing that it's safe to stay on it.
Yeah, that's so good to know. And I just
Yeah.
want to again preface this for the listeners that we are not talking about synthetic hormone. We are talking about bioidentical hormones here. We are not talking about what your doctor might give you as HRT in the lowest dose to get you over those symptoms until
Yeah.
you're 55, and then you can go off of it and now you're just, sort of sailing through midlife. No, we are talking about bioidentical hormones here, and there is a very specific way you need to get them, etc. So I just want to preface that as we kind of wrap up.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
is what we are
And
talking about, and let's
what do
not
you want your coupon code to be? Do you have something that you use all the time?
Scarlet 10 or Scarlet whatever the number is.
Sure, 10. Yeah.
Okay,
Scarlet
great.
10 and you get 10% off. Okay.
Amazing. I'll make sure that that's in the show notes, and I'll definitely make sure that as we promote this episode that will be a part of it as well. And I will definitely be talking to you outside of this because this is not my specialty. It is a very great complementary to my specialty.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And so I'll definitely be talking to you about how I can help my clients a little bit more using your services.
Yeah. And with what you do, it is a good, like, we want to put these worlds together.
Absolutely.
Right? I always say HRT isn't the end all be all.
No.
I make it sound like that because I get super passionate about talking about them and the truth behind them, but you still have to do all the other stuff.
Of course.
You
It will
have
make it
to.
even more effective.
It does.
Yeah.
It totally does.
Yeah.
Yeah. You still got to eat well. You still got to do all the things, it's super
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Where can people find you, Karen?
KarenMartel.com. Social media, I'm Karen Martel Hormones. And my podcast is the Hormone Solution Podcast, which has been going for a very long time, over 400 episodes, 2 million downloads. We're in the top 50 on iTunes. So it's a good one. And there's so much information to be had about hormones on there. So if you want to learn more, definitely tune in.
Amazing. I will make sure all of that information is in the show notes. And I'm going to head over to Instagram right now. I'm not sure that I follow you yet, but you will get a new follower in about 10 minutes.
And then I will follow you.
Amazing.
We may have already followed each other. I'm not sure.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Karen.
Thanks for having me.